I've only ever been to Lamborghini 3 times ever, and I don't know what it is. It always feels like you just shouldn't be there, like the teacher's office at school or something. In the last video, we found out that whoever rebuilt my Murcielago engine did it completely wrong. 8 cam cap, and then we go to 10. There was loose head bolts. They're literally finger tight. There was broken piston rings. Oh no. And a bunch of missing parts. And to top that, we've found even more things wrong with the Murcielago. But none of this is going to stop me to attempt to rebuild my dream car. So I had a few phone calls to make.
Good morning, Manual Lamborghini Leicester. How may I help you?
Hello, I'm wondering if I could be put through to parts. Which brings us to today, collecting parts from Lamborghini. I'm surprised you could get them so quick.
Yeah,
like
a lot of stuff you can get quite quickly. If you've got it in start, then
yeah.
It's quick.
Is it not came from Italy then?
Yeah.
Oh, it has. So
yeah.
Oh, so
that quick.
So quick. Something tells me and Evan from Lamborghini are going to be best of friends, because we're going to be seeing each other quite a lot. But the only thing we're getting for free here are the chocolates on the reception desk. And as we're left with the parts, what are the chances of seeing another Murcielago there? The guys let me have a look around it to see what one in good condition looks like before heading back to the unit to work on mine. Before we get on to what I bought and how much, do you remember this? This was the circuit board removed from the back of my instrument cluster, which didn't work due to apparently somebody jump starting the car with the battery terminals the wrong way round. When we took it apart, we found a bunch of resistors which looked burnt out. Turns out Liam's mum works with a lot of circuit boards, so she found the correct resistors to go in those gaps and soldered in some new ones. Now we've just got to see whether it works. So if this works, essentially Liam's mum has fixed £2,500 worth of instrument cluster you can't even buy for free. She didn't charge us, so we're gonna have to do a massive shout out for Liam's mum. If it doesn't, thanks Liam's mum anyway. We're looking for some sign of life. Yep. Oh, the immobiliser works.
Because of the new battery.
the new immobiliser works. Here we go.
Oh no.
Oh, no, it doesn't look good. No. There must be there needs to be something else which needs to be tested on this board, I think. I've not got one single light on. Well, it was worth a try. It's not the start we was hoping for, but the news doesn't end there. Whilst my dad was honing the cylinders out, he found something else which could have caused catastrophic engine failure. We're at the bottom of the engine right now, and these are oil galleries. So these send oil up to the top of the engine, and my dad actually just removed one of these, and he's told me to remove this and have a look what's inside. And bearing in mind that the oil goes directly through that little hole, and look what is actually in that hole. I think that is sealant or sealer. It's turning out it was a really good job for us to check everything on this engine. So another thing my dad wanted to check were the valves. Here are the collets that hold the valve springs in place, and with the springs removed, which look new, we could pull the valve out. And my dad thinks that these have already been ground out, meaning the valves sit nice and flush against the head of the engine and won't cause any leaks. It also looks like the head of the engine has been skimmed as well. And what's looking even more positive, if we look at the valve seals, they look brand new, which is good. So despite the many negatives with the Murcielago, there is actually some positives. And one positive is that we can actually begin to start rebuilding the engine on this thing. Right here are some vital parts of the engine that it just wouldn't work without. Just like your business wouldn't work without a website, which is why we've got today's sponsor of the video, Squarespace. So the Murcielago cost me £100,000. But of course, Squarespace will cost you far less than that. And the best thing about it, anyone can build a website using it. Can you believe this thing was £209. Squarespace do everything from websites to online stores to marketing tools and analytics. It's as easy as finding a template which best suits your style and then going in and customizing it. You can drag and drop your logos in there, edit text, and add your own photos in there. And we're not even touching the surface of all the analytical tools. So when you need a website, go to squarespace.com or just click the link in the description box below. And when you're ready to launch, use code Matt Armstrong, and that's gonna give you 10% off your first website or domain name. We didn't get any discount when buying these parts. All of these parts in here are little tiny things like chain guides and journals and that sort of stuff. But the one thing that did shock us is one piston ring was £218. But luckily, we only needed two because it looks like he's already replaced the others, but those two snapped off when he replaced them in. So all of these should be okay to go back in, and we'll get onto the gudgeon pin situation later. Now this is the point where things are going to get a little technical, but I'm going to try my best to explain it because I'm still learning as well. So now that the valves have been ground in on this side, they're going to sit prouder on this side. So they're going to sit higher up, which means when the camshaft is on the top, the lobes are going to be way closer to the valves there, and they should be a certain millimeter gap, or if you're my dad, thou gap, because he measures in inches and is making it confusing. Or to explain it better, here's the camshaft and below is the valve lifter. We're measuring the gap in between the two with a feeler gauge. So the gap on the intake side should be 0.35 millimeters. On the exhaust side, it should be 0.5 millimeters. And the only way to adjust this gap is using these shims here, which come in different sizes. These sit on top of the valve lifters, just like this. So we've got random shims going in place at the minute because we have no idea whether it's going to work or not, but then we can make a calculation from that random shim whether we need a smaller shim or a bigger shim to make the clearance 0.50 millimeters on the exhaust side. On each head of the engine there is two camshafts. One camshaft opens and closes the inlet valves, and the other camshaft opens and closes the exhaust valves. There's two inlet valves for every cylinder and two exhaust valves for every cylinder. Hopefully you're still with me. At the moment we're just working on the exhaust cam, and we put the cam caps this time in the right order and torque them all down. To measure the gap in between the cam and the lifter, the cam lobes have to be pointing upwards, and then my dad can wedge the feeler gauge in between the two. And whilst my dad is doing this, I begin to write down the calculation board. Here's a chart for the exhaust side. So we have 12 gaps to measure here. The top half of the graph is where I'm going to be writing the gap that it is at the moment, and at the bottom half is going to be the size of the shim that's in there at the moment as well. So I'm going backwards and forwards writing all the measurements down until it's starting to look like a mad scientist board. Welcome to Matt Armstrong's math lesson. So as you can see, the desired figure we need to get is 0.5 millimeters. That's the gap between the cam and the valve. At the minute, these are the gaps we have at the moment. As you can see, neither of which are 0.5 millimeters. These are the shims that are in there at the minute. We need to get the correct shim in there to make this gap equal this. Hopefully that makes sense. And if we don't get these gaps right, it can cause the engine to misfire, it can run rough, it can sound rough, and it just won't be right. So it's pretty vital. Right here, I'm trying to write down a formula which makes it simple for me and explain it to you guys as well. But even I ended up getting this wrong and messing it up, and Hannah had to rub it out and redo it so many times over. So if you're still with us, I have done the calculations. At the bottom, these are the shims we need to get the gap between the cam and the valve to 0.5 mil. This is where the issue concurs, because at the minute we're just using the shims that were already in the engine. So my dad is working out what shims we've got and putting them in the correct places, but it looks as if we may need to order some, and this is where Lamborghini is very, very cheeky. It looks as if we have these shims here, the ones with the ticks on. The rest of the shims that we need are 375 shim, 375 shim, 380, 375, 385 and 375. It's safe to say a 3.75 and a 3.8 mil shim is a fairly common shim that we need. And guess which one are the most expensive shims to order from Lamborghini? You guessed it, a 3.75, which is £31, 34p plus VAT, and a 3.80, which is again £31 and 34p. But if I wanted to order a 3.25 shim, it would only cost me £6.31, and it's less of a shim than that one is. And isn't it just a coincidence that this has to be done every 24,000 miles on this? And the shims which you most likely need are more expensive. So shout out to Lamborghini. Oh, it is what it is, isn't it? After that, my dad and I started doing the inlet side, which is a completely different measurement of 0.35 mil. But that's when something came up. So we've got to do a massive shout out to Scott because we have just hacked the system. Scott Ratarossa has just found us that the valve shims are the same in these than they are in some Ferraris. And what do you know? Ferrari is actually cheaper than Lamborghini. We found the exact same valve shims here for £5.95p. In your face, Lamborghini. Another vital saving when rebuilding this engine. And look at that, Ferrari charged the same price no matter what shim. Moving from the head of the engine now to the bottom of the engine. Here's a cylinder sleeve which we put new seal on from Lamborghini, and we can start knocking that into the bottom of the engine with our special Lamborghini tools, of course. And then I can carry on building the pistons up onto the conrods, which are held together with a gudgeon pin, which if you remember in the last video we thought had wear on it. There's 12 pistons, which means there's 12 gudgeon pins, and from Lamborghini they're £250 each. But we managed to outsource them from another company. Only issue was they were 1 mil wider than what we needed, so they had to be machined down. So unfortunately we can't name this company who sorted us out with the pins because they're not guaranteeing them because they are technically modified. We've found something else now. I wish we'd got this on camera when we find it, but my dad was just checking that. So, right, okay, how are we going to explain this? The piston rings are meant to go in a certain order, and you can see on the bottom oil ring, it sort of chamfers off at the bottom, and then also it looks like that at the top. Now, this one, that piston ring at the bottom does not chamfer the way that that does. Meaning that he's put the pistons in the wrong way round. So we changed the piston rings, but put them in the wrong way round. So it's a good job we checked this as well. Would you believe it? So we've got to check all the piston rings now, what my dad is doing at the moment, that they are the right way round, and then we can put the piston rings in before cleaning the pistons in and putting them back where they should go. But it's a good job we're checking everything on this.
It was on that way.
And the best thing about it, where is it? Where does it say? It says top on it, so not only couldn't he count, he couldn't read either. Oh no, I hope he's not watching these videos. Hey, no one's perfect, but at least when rebuilding an engine, you've got to make sure you do the little things right. So now me and my dad are checking every single piston ring before putting on the 2 new ones onto the piston which had 2 snap piston rings. Once we were confident that that was right, we can then begin to knock in the pistons into the cylinders. You use a special tool to do this to squash the piston rings into the piston and then carefully knock it down into the cylinder. And we're being extra careful because remember, each piston ring is around £218 each. And there's 3 on each piston. The red stuff you can see around the piston is assembly lube, and it works as a sort of lubricant to push everything in. And before you know it, 12 pistons are in the bottom of the block, and we can turn this thing over, ready to put the crankshaft on. So we've now got the bottom end of the engine upside down with all the pistons in, ready for the crankshaft to go on. And I get it, maybe we're not doing things on how somebody else would do it or how the professionals would do it. Neither one of us have rebuilt a Murcielago engine ever before. And yes, we could just drop the engine off at somebody who has rebuilt 1,000,001 of them and be 100% certain that this thing is going to start up at the end. But where would the fun in that be? Although it doesn't look like much, this is my dream car, and it means so much more to me if we can turn the key for the first time to hear the V12 roar, knowing that all of us rebuilt this ourselves. I don't know about you, but I am so curious to find out what is underneath this wrap and why this part is grey. Well, the story just gets better and better. Thanks so much for watching this video. If you enjoyed it, hit that subscribe button, hit that thumbs up button, and I'll see you in the next video. Peace out. Can you spell it? Is that the highest you can be? Oh no!
Like a drug that I just can't deny.